It began with something small, a peculiar alteration flickering on the SH spacecraft's monitoring equipment. At first, nobody thought much of it. After all, space is littered with countless oddities, bits of wandering debris, sudden glimmers, and stray pulses of light. But this wasn't just another meaningless blip. Soon after, an image surfaced. It didn't come from a billion-dollar space observatory, but instead from a simple backyard telescope in Australia. Michael Mattiato, a dedicated comet specialist, happened to be the one watching the sky that night, and what he captured left even NASA stunned. Racing across the heavens was a colossal object with a dazzling tail that spread wider than 5 full moons lined up edge to edge. It was moving fast, plunging toward the sun, yet it wasn't like the usual celestial wanderers we've grown accustomed to. This was not a faint, frozen traveler from a distant star system. It was massive, unnervingly bright, and carried a presence that felt threatening in a way no comet or asteroid had before. In an instant, its sudden arrival stole the spotlight from the Atlas comet, which until then had been the talk of astronomers everywhere. Now this new visitor was all that mattered. This strange body dwarfed the Atlas object, and its nature was even more bewildering. Named C/2025 R2 Swan, it refused to fit neatly into any known category. It wasn't behaving like a comet or an asteroid, and the route it was carving through our solar system seemed oddly unnatural. Instead of simply reflecting sunlight, it pulsed with a brightness that looked deliberate, structured, as though driven by intelligence. Even more unsettling, its activity seemed to unfold according to a strict schedule, as if it were following orders rather than chance. In an effort to understand, astronomers turned to the James Webb Space Telescope, hoping to pierce through the mystery. What it revealed was more alarming than anyone expected. Swan R2 wasn't a hunk of ice and rock at all. It was a construct, some kind of machine. The discovery sent shockwaves through the scientific community. The first official sighting had been recorded on September 12th, 2025, when the ESH spacecraft's SWN instrument locked onto something that shone with razor-sharp precision, moving not with randomness, but with deliberate intent. Then, just 2 days later, the strangeness deepened. Mattiato's modest telescope captured another image, one that left seasoned astronomers speechless. The enormous tail stretched across 2.5 degrees of the sky, spanning a distance so vast it could be compared to 5 moons laid side by side. It dwarfed the tail of the Atlas comet, eclipsing it entirely. The discovery sparked a wave of urgency among scientists everywhere, who now realized they weren't observing just another frozen traveler from deep space. They were watching the approach of something wholly unfamiliar, something that might not be natural at all. The International Astronomical Union rushed to classify the new arrival, yet the real challenge wasn't just assigning it a name. The question wasn't what to call it, it was what it truly was. This wasn't some ordinary block of frozen gas and dust drifting through space and brushing by the sun. It was something entirely its own. When scientists compared it side by side with the previously watched object, 3A Atlas, the differences became startlingly clear. They were not limited to size or brightness. They stretched into its very composition, its velocity, and its strange behavior. 3A Atlas had seemed to propel itself in a way that resembled comets we already knew, but Swan R2 was surrounded by something far stranger, an intense glowing envelope of energy. This bright sheath didn't just reflect light, it bent the force of the solar wind, bouncing it aside and altering its direction. It wasn't ice, and it wasn't dust. It was something entirely new. And then there was its orbit. This wasn't a body making a casual flyby. It was circling back. Swan R2 was locked into a cycle that brought it around the sun once every 22,554 years, a time span stretching further back than the dawn of human civilizations, older than the first cities, older than written history itself. That was the moment doubt gave way to unease. Natural objects didn't behave this way unless something was guiding them. The James Webb Space Telescope was pointed at the enigmatic visitor as it drew closer to the sun, its advanced instruments peeling back the veil of light to study it. What came back defied everything known about the cosmos. The spectrum of light bouncing off Swan R2 revealed it wasn't a loose pile of dust and ice, but a structured body composed of nickel and cobalt, a dense engineered blend of metals. These weren't random cosmic leftovers. They were the very alloys that appear in human blueprints for futuristic machines, but never in the natural geology of the solar system. And the surprises didn't end there. Instead of chaotic bursts of material spraying off, like every other comet scientist had ever studied, Swan R2 released energy in tightly controlled streams. Its immense tail wasn't a cloud of water vapor sparkling in sunlight. It was exhaust waste expelled with purpose. The chemical traces were heavy and deliberate. Carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, and, most strikingly, torrents of nickel ions stripped of their electrons shooting out in thick jets. Then came the strangest observations of all. Instead of drifting with random variations, Swan R2's trajectory shifted in sharp, sudden adjustments. Each time it accelerated, its glow shifted, deep red fading into a piercing white-green, the signature of a plasma engine altering how it burned its fuel. This was no accident of physics. It was engineering. The Webb telescope had confirmed the fear that was spreading in whispers among astronomers. Swan R2 wasn't just carrying power, it was generating it. At its core, something was alive with energy, radiating more than 10,000 gigawatts every second. That was the kind of force that, in the natural universe, only comes from the catastrophic collision of black holes. But here, impossibly, it seemed to be concentrated inside the heart of a ship. As Swan R2 accelerates toward the sun, another oddity becomes clear. Its trajectory is not random. It's been timed with uncanny precision to intersect with 3I Atlas in October 2025. In the vastness of space, synchronous arrivals like this are extraordinarily unlikely. Swan R2 arrived from the direction of Aquarius. 3I Atlas came from Sagittarius. They originated far apart and traveled on very different courses, yet now their paths are converging. They're within about 50 million kilometers of one another and closing fast. What are the odds of two interstellar objects approaching from nearly opposite directions, ending up near each other on the far side of the sun where Earth's view is blocked? It looks planned rather than accidental. Some researchers suspect Swan R2 was dispatched to intercept 3E Atlas, perhaps to retrieve it, neutralize it, or establish contact. Others propose a different idea. The two objects could be elements of a far-reaching system of observation that predates human history. If so, our sun may be more than a passing waypoint. It might be a deliberate focus, a hub or gateway. These probes, if that's what they are, could be responding to something humanity has done, our transmissions, our growing technological signature, or simply arriving at a preordained season. The narrative grows stranger when past theories are considered. Writers such as Graham Hancock have proposed that Swan R2 might have visited the inner solar system roughly 22,000 years ago, near the end of the last ice age, a period when humans began erecting large monuments, aligning structures with the stars, and carving calendars into stone. Did ancient builders follow the path of Swan R2? Did their myths and monuments record its passage and warn future generations of its return? Some argue yes. The precise alignments of places like the Great Pyramid, Göbekli Tepe, and Mayan observatories suggest awareness of celestial cycles we're only now beginning to decode. If Swan R2 has indeed returned, those traditions could be cultural memories of an earlier encounter. And now the modern story takes an uneasy turn. Shortly after the James Webb team issued a restrained report on Swan R2, numerous data releases were retracted worldwide. NASA pulled spectral datasets from public archives. The European Space Agency issued a guarded statement calling Swan R2 an anomalous but explainable phenomenon. China's astronomical authorities reported instrument maintenance and interruptions. What caused the sudden blackout? An unnamed source at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory said many teams were briefed about a confidential report circulating among the Five Eyes nations. That report described technological signatures that couldn't be explained by natural processes. Odd maneuvers, a symmetrical structure hidden beneath the diffuse coma, and changing emissions that looked like deliberate steering. In short, Swan R2 might not be a comet at all, and someone appeared to be trying to suppress that conclusion. The silence only fueled speculation, especially after NASA quietly adjusted Voyager 1's dish to point nearer to Swan R2's projected path. Why would they repoint the antenna? What were they trying to intercept or transmit? As Swan R2 drew inward, instruments run by SETI and conventional observatories in Chile and South Korea detected a faint carrier tracking with the object's tail. Initially dismissed as background interference, the signal pattern soon drew closer inspection. They weren't random. The emissions displayed orderly repetition and precise intervals. The timing between bursts matched the Fibonacci sequence, a mathematical cadence found in galaxies, biological structures, and natural spirals. These weren't the ragged signatures of a disintegrating comet. They resembled encoded transmissions, or at minimum, structured activity. Worse, the intervals between pulses were shrinking, like a countdown, and the final burst, labeled Signal 8 by SETI, showed an abrupt, massive jump in intensity, reminiscent of a flare even though its origin was well outside the solar system. It looked less like mere signaling and more like preparation. Quietly, some military space programs began to activate contingency procedures. The US Air Force Space Command shifted several classified surveillance satellites, while Russia launched a sudden mission from the Plesetsk Cosmodrome carrying an undisclosed payload seemingly directed toward the ecliptic plane in China. Data from orbital monitors also showed clusters of nanocraft adjusting their trajectories, arranging themselves into a net-like pattern stretching across Earth's northern hemisphere. Why such coordinated movements? Leaked files from the French Defense Ministry suggest multiple nations suspect Swan 2 may pose risks, even if it isn't a direct weapon. Its danger might lie in what it could trigger when nearing the sun. Some theories propose it could serve as a relay for communication, a mechanism to manipulate gravity, or even a device designed to unlock phenomena hidden within the sun's magnetic field. Attempts to send probes closer have reportedly failed, either unable to align with its course or overwhelmed by intense solar radiation. But perhaps the most unsettling revelation came from a recorded exchange between two retired engineers once tied to the Deep Space Network. They hinted that Voyager 1's true purpose wasn't merely to leave the solar system, it was designed to wait, to monitor what might arrive. Meanwhile, the James Webb Telescope continued dissecting Swan 2's structure. Beneath its glowing shroud and sweeping energy plume, astronomers detected order, symmetrical designs, repeating geometries at multiple scales, and arcs aligned with the same ratios observed in its signal pulses. In simple terms, this object is manufactured. Webb's spectral readings revealed consistent dips in reflected light, like the telltale dimming used to detect exoplanets, pointing to layered surfaces. The evidence suggested an engineered construct in compartments, metallic reinforcements, and possibly shielding against heat. Even more unsettling, certain scans revealed vast hollow sections that could be internal chambers or energy conduits. The object might be enormous, but it isn't solid throughout. Its design looks intentional, optimized to move across interstellar space, gather power from stars, or perhaps to conceal something within. Nothing like this has ever been seen from nature or space before, raising the unnerving question, who built it? Swan 2 passed Mercury, and observers assumed it would slip briefly behind the sun before emerging again. Yet when the time came, it never reappeared. By mid-October, telescopes should have picked it up again, but there was no sign of it. No glowing trail, no orbital track, no detectable emissions. For nearly a week, it had simply vanished. Then a solar observatory in Chile recorded a sudden flash of intense radiation, and with that, astronomers realized Swan 2 had returned. But its course was completely different, now veering toward the sun's southern pole, a region dominated by unstable magnetic fields. Why would a supposed comet alter its path so drastically? Why plunge into an area of warped gravity? Some argued it was using the field to accelerate, but others suspected something far stranger was taking place. Swan 2 plunged into a region of the sun we barely understand, a zone some speculate could conceal a gateway to something beyond our dimensions. Did it steer itself there on purpose? At 3:03 UTC on October 17th, as Swan 2 passed the sun's magnetic kink, space weather instruments registered a brief burst of gamma radiation. It originated inside our solar system, lasted only 0.7 seconds, yet released more energy than the sun emits in 2 days. Nothing like it had ever been recorded. What made it worse was its focus. Unlike ordinary solar flares that spread outward, this gamma flash appeared collimated, as if aimed. Its path crossed Earth's orbital track, producing minor disruptions to satellite navigation and even disturbing some submarine communications cables. Then the match was checked. The burst's origin lined up exactly with Swan 2's last known position. Either Swan 2 absorbed solar power and discharged it, or it somehow linked with the sun itself. Either way, this was control, not random motion. When Swan R2 emerged from behind the sun, both SETI and NASA's Deep Space Network detected it transmitting again. The emission had changed. Instead of brief pulses, it now sent spiral-shaped signals spanning many frequencies. As researchers analyzed those patterns, a disturbing similarity emerged. The signal patterns resembled the motion of Earth's tectonic plates. It seemed as if Swan R2 was mirroring our planet's dynamics, or attempting to communicate using Earth's natural resonances. One band matched the Schumann resonance, the global electromagnetic frequency some associate with biological and cognitive effects. Another echoed the simple on-off cadence used by the Voyager probes. Was Swan R2 addressing Earth, or was it addressing Voyager, or something else entirely? Pieces of the pattern also matched fragments found hidden within the Voyager mission records. Voyager 1 shifted its orientation unexpectedly, something it should never do without commands from Earth. Data revealed its main antenna had rotated by about 2.4 degrees west, pointing directly towards Swan R2. The strange part is that Voyager 1 sits far beyond the sun's reach, drifting in interstellar space. By all logic, it shouldn't be able to track or respond to objects still inside the solar system. Yet somehow, it locked onto Swan R2. Even more unsettling, this adjustment happened at the exact moment the gamma ray burst was detected. It was as if Voyager sensed the surge and responded. Engineers at JPL were baffled. The spacecraft hasn't received new code in decades, and it carries no AI or systems that allow independent reactions. Still, it behaved as though something had triggered it. Some believe Swan R2 deliberately sent a signal aimed at Voyager, recognizing it as a machine created by intelligent life. Others fear the opposite, that Voyager was contacted and responded. If so, then whatever is out there now knows precisely where we are. As Swan R2 drifted farther beyond the solar system, the Galileo probe made its own puzzling observation. An artificial-looking shadow, like a false eclipse, crossing Europa, the moon of Jupiter long thought to hold the potential for life. The eclipse wasn't ordinary. It lasted far longer than a normal eclipse and moved opposite to Swan R2's orbital motion. Spectrum analysis showed the dark patch wasn't simple occlusion, but an interference pattern, as if intense waves were overlapping. Scientists began to suspect Swan R2 was manipulating gravity or projecting fields to bend light. That could be how it maneuvers or conceals itself. This was a major discovery. It wasn't merely a passing object, it had the capacity to alter local physics. Questions multiplied. Was it hiding from some threat, searching for something beneath Europa's ice? Or worse, activating something there? Images from the James Webb Telescope's near-infrared camera, taken during a brief clear window, revealed an anomaly inside the gas cloud around Swan R2. For 0.37 seconds, a perfect circular object appeared inside the swirling coma and vanished. That fraction of a second told scientists a lot. It wasn't ice or rock, but a reflective metal, and its infrared emission was unnaturally steady. Even more unsettling, specialists described it as an iris, a dark aperture surrounded by a precise ring like an artificial eye. Immediately, online speculation ran wild. Was it a viewing device, a receiver, or a living sensor embedded in the craft? Biomimicry experts noted its resemblance to deep-sea organisms adapted to sea in total darkness. Could that eye perceive the cosmos in ways beyond our understanding, or could it be observing us? Just as the mystery deepened, a team at MIT published a startling report after analyzing Swan R2's signal bursts, and their conclusions created widespread alarm. Parts of the transmission resembled patterns used in Earth's older satellite networks, notably the modulation shapes from Cold War-era Project Echo. That raises a chilling possibility. Either Swan R2 is mimicking our transmissions to simplify communication, or it has been listening to us for decades and is now answering in our own radio language. One segment of the broadcast even lined up with the frequency associated with the 1977 WOW signal, a band chosen because it's typically quiet and considered suitable for interstellar messages. If Swan R2 is using terrestrial signals as a template, it could mean whoever built or sent it has been waiting until we reached a certain technological stage. Not simply to receive a transmission, but to interpret something we weren't supposed to detect earlier. Then, an unexpected breakthrough arrived from a collaboration between astrophysicists and pattern recognition AI teams. They ran Swan R2's emissions through advanced analysis software and produced a three-dimensional reconstruction, not of a solid object, but of a shaped region of space, located near the Lyra constellation. Targeted radio telescopes picked up a faint echo there, similar to Swan R2's original carrier, but returned with odd delays blaze as if reflected from another locus. Cross-checking this with archival exoplanet surveys showed the area is effectively empty of known bodies, yet the mathematical fit implied the presence of a Dyson-like shell or shielding structure. That suggests Swan R2 might be more than a mere probe. It could be a beacon pointing to a refuge, or a device designed to hide and lead toward a concealed home. Whatever this thing is, it isn't alone. It belongs to a larger network, and now Earth has been pulled into that system. For decades, we've been sending signals into space, hoping for a reply. But perhaps the long silence wasn't emptiness at all, but surveillance. Maybe the transmissions we've beamed out, from the Voyager record to the WOW signal, weren't ignored. They were recorded and kept. Swan R2 is not merely an object. It isn't just another comet or a fluke event. It behaves like a message, a scout, or an initiator. Its precise form, its patterned transmissions, the gamma flash, and its mimicry of old human satellite tones all point to a troubling conclusion. It was built deliberately. If that's true, then this odd sphere, roughly 100 times the mass or scale of 3I Atlas, is more than a transient visitor to our neighborhood. It resembles a seeker moving through a region that's already been mapped. The sun provided its route, the signal served as its identification, and now we've effectively answered it. Or worse, it answered itself. The pressing question becomes, what launched something far larger than the 3I Atlas objects? And if the originator is watching now, maybe we're not approaching a first contact at all. Maybe whatever is out there has been here before, hidden in the dark where we never looked.